wanted to bring it a little bit relevant to the business we're running. Obviously, we are partnering with Snowflake, and they made a big splash with the IPO. And they've been pushing this narrative and vision, and they're actually executing, in my view, pretty well on the vision of a data cloud, which is a platform in its own right, a cloud in its own right. It's really a global network where you can do data sharing, you can exchange data safely and securely and all of that. And there is a big vision. The CEO of Snowflake has the vision of businesses running their entire supply chain, all the vendor relations, all the partnerships, all the data exchange happening on that data cloud, right? Which is, for me as an entrepreneur, building a business around that, obviously is very compelling. So I wanted to ask you if that resonates with you, the notion of a global mesh, global network where data gets exchanged between businesses, and what potential you see if this gets really realized at global scale.
Yeah, look, I drank the Kool-Aid in 2006 on cloud. So you're preaching to the choir here, right? I think that the friction that has been in the BI space and the analytics space in general, in most of the areas has been related to the data and where the data is residing, the complexity and the number of silos, but also the fact that we have most of the data on-prem. Now, hopefully, more moving into the cloud. I think that in a perfect world, if we could imagine a world where all the data was in the cloud, everything, like all our systems of record, all of our analytic data, everything was living in a cloud that we could easily be able to use services to talk to each other and have it in sort of one ecosystem, if you will. I think will open floodgates for new opportunities in the BI tooling. I think there's a bunch of opportunity there, but I do think that there's work to be done in the sense of we still have to get the majority of the enterprises that are sitting out there that are living in sort of on-premise land still to get their data up there as well. Because the complexity there is, well, how do I drag all this data around? And we've got lots of technologies and tooling that are doing that now, but it's still creating friction. And so in a perfect world, if everybody just used cloud applications, and that was something we did back in Indicee where we had a big decision, we didn't do it. We spent a lot of our time munging data from on-prem and cloud, flat files, it just was complex. There was a time where it was like, why don't we just forget about on-prem and only focus on cloud vendors? So we just provide analytic solutions. We only create data connectors to cloud vendors, and therefore we can just get access to Salesforce, and the list goes on of the cloud vendors at the time. We didn't do that because the majority of the data was still locked up in on-prem. And so it would have been very hard to go win customers that way if we said, oh, well, you got data on-prem? Sorry, we're not your guys. So now I think you could do that. You could probably say, no, we're only going to work with people that have their data in the cloud. If you don't have the data in the cloud, we don't work. We don't do anything for you. If you're a small business, you could easily do that, right? So I'm not suggesting that's your strategy per se, but I'm just saying that's a possibility. So I totally resonate with it. So I think then what happens is, when's our iPhone moment going to happen? So if we believe that, look, there's going to be more snowflakes that are going to happen, right? We've got there, they had this massive IPO, great success. Too bad Coinbase came along, but anyways, they got beat on that one. But the reality is that they've demonstrated that there's a vision there and people believe in that vision. Meanwhile, the Silicon Valley over there was kind of spinning their wheels on Hadoop and things that were sort of going nowhere. And then Snowflake comes along and does this, and everybody's like, whoa. So I think that really shook up the industry, and I think there's going to be more players that are going to do it. And I think as that becomes a thing where data in the cloud truly become, and COVID and the acceleration of digital transformation will rapidly move data more and more into the cloud, then I think it creates an opportunity for the BI vendors and tooling vendors to then say, well, how do we get into a world that we can, do what Snowflake did, but on the tooling side? And I think there's changes that can happen over there, just in the way we package and price our software, which I think is living in dinosaur land. That needs to be completely changed, which is creating friction. And then, different types of architectures to be able to truly live in the cloud and be able to make data flow easier. So,
Yeah, I can share another anecdote that I think is driving some of this trend about being able to use the cloud for exchanging data, not necessarily reporting on data that's already in the cloud. The data may arrive in the cloud through connectors and ingestions and whatnot. But we are working with a number of fintech organizations. And they're sharing with us that the big banks that they're selling into and partnering with, they are demanding that they use Snowflake for exchanging data. Instead of shipping CSVs, setting up FTPs and stuff like that, running ETL pipelines, the bank says, if you're going to be a supplier, if you're going to be a vendor, if I'm going to partner with you, you have to use Snowflake for interacting, sharing your data and accessing my data, which is interesting, right? I've never seen that before in the industry where the bigger organizations demand.
Well, big win for Snowflake on those types of movements, right?
Yeah, absolutely.